All right, good morning. Committee on Parole is reconvening. We're at Raymond Correctional Center on Wednesday, April 5th, 2023. It is 9:58 a.m. Would the staff at Raymond Laborde please introduce yourself for the record?
Ma'am, good morning, Ms. Renata, Warden Marcus Meyer, Deputy Warden Keith Turner.
Raymond, okay, thanks. And we are ready for our first case. That's Mr. Seamster. Would you introduce yourself, sir? Tell us your name and your DOC number.
Michael Seamster, 118142, ma'am.
You have counsel with you there this morning?
Yes, ma'am. Good morning, Mr. Renata. Robert Lancaster with the LSU Parole and Reentry Clinic here today, representing Mr. Seamster. With me is Robert Everett. He's a second-year student at the LSU Law Center. He is not certified under Louisiana Supreme Court Rule 20, but he has worked with Mr. Seamster in preparation for today's hearing. He also worked on the packet that was submitted to the committee in advance of the hearing. He's prepared to make a statement in support end of the hearing should the committee be middle.
Okay, great. Yes, and we got that statement at the end, Mr. Everett. We also have here with us in Baton Rouge, representing the victim, Ms. Thomas, who will be speaking, Mr. Taylor, who will be speaking again, Ms. Thomas, Mr. Thomas, John Thomas. All of those will be speaking on behalf of the victim. We also have Jeffrey Jacob, Janai Bailey, and Sheila Taylor, who are also speaking. And at the appropriate time, all who have indicated they'd like to speak. First, I'll read some identifying information into the record, and then I'll turn it over to Mr. Roche. Mr. Seamster, your case has been assigned to him. So, Mr. Seamster, you're here this morning. Let's see, you're classified as a fourth felony offender. You're currently serving a 50-year sentence for a attempted second-degree murder conviction in Webster Parish. You were sentenced in April of 2005. You have a parole eligibility date, July 20th, 2023. You've done earned good time, and you have a full-term date, which is July 19, 2053. Mr. Seamster, does all that sound correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Would you answer Mr. Roche's question?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Good morning, Mr. Seamster.
Morning, sir.
Morning, Warden Meyer. How are you?
Morning, Mr. Roche, doing good, thank you.
Mr. Seamster is 6 years old, is that correct?
Sir.
You're currently 60 years old, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And when you committed this vicious murder, you were about 40 years old?
Yes, sir.
So you were not young.
That's true, sir.
You're a fourth felony offender. And as far as I can see, you served 19 and a half years of a 50-year sentence. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And 19 years ago, you agreed by via of a plea agreement with the state of Louisiana and the victim's family that you would serve 50 years so you wouldn't have to go to trial and possibly be sentenced to life. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
The original charge at the time you were arrested in 2003 was second-degree murder. Is that correct?
That's correct, sir.
And you could have been sentenced to life, and you chose to agree to serve 50 years to take that office. Am I correct? Am I correct?
Correct, sir.
Okay. Now, Mr. Seamster, I will acknowledge one second, that you have accomplished a lot of things while you're incarcerated. You advanced your educational status. You have 2 associate degrees, one in religious education and one in Christian ministry, and you have a bachelor's degree in Christian ministry. You have multiple sources of support. You have 3 or 4 letters from educators and other officials acknowledging your achievements and saying that they will support you when you're released. You only have 3 write-ups in 19 years of incarceration. That's an excellent disciplinary record. We will revisit a write-up that you got in 2017, a 30W, and I know exactly what a 30W is, but we will talk about that write-up a little later. You have certification in landscaping. You have certifications in pesticide, both private and commercial pesticide. You have a low risk assessment. You have served your 19 years very well. And I would like to thank you for the service you did defending our country. Thank you for your service. I'm almost sure your student attorney Everett, will enter any other accomplishments into the record when he does his presentation at the appropriate time. But I'm going to focus, and I want you to focus on the offense and whether or not you are ready to be released at this time. But I'm almost sure that Mr. Everett will take care of the rest of your accomplishments. You're originally charged with 2nd-degree murder. Is that correct, Mr. Smith?
Yes, sir.
And I see where you've been on supervision before. You have a very poor supervision history. You were on supervision in California for 1983 conviction for 2 counts of assault with a deadly weapon in San Diego, California. The record of that supervision is not available, but you were on supervision. You got revoked in 1990 in Louisiana, and you got revoked in 1996. You were on supervision again in 2001, and you completed that supervision in 2002, and then 12 months later, you ended your supervision in July of 2002, and in 2003, you brutally stabbed to death Miss Wendy Thomas, and I understand you stabbed her over 100 times. So tell us exactly what happened on July 20th, 2003.
Sir, I had been hanging out all night, I had been drinking, I had did some drugs, and when I came into the house, I had got into a confrontation with Wendy,
and we got in an argument in the kitchen. So when we got in an argument, you know, she was very bitter because I had been out. About me being out, she was.
One second, let me put it on the record. What relationship was Wendy to you?
My girlfriend.
Okay, she was your girlfriend. Okay, continue.
Okay, so when I got in and we had got into an argument, and I kind of pushed her, and she grabbed a knife to try to hit me. And when she tried to hit me, she took off running, and that's when I grabbed the knife and took it from her and stabbed her.
So it's Wendy's fault.
It's my fault, sir. I take accountability to everything because I shouldn't have been out.
The way you stated that, it seems to be Wendy's fault because she started and you pushed her and okay, tell me what happened after that.
After that, I had took the knife from her and started stabbing her.
From my reports, there were 6 or 7 knives throughout the house. Some of the blades on those knives were broken. And when you broke a blade, picked up another knife.
Yes, sir.
Just for informational purposes, you have adamant opposition from the DA's office, Mr. Scarlett Marvin in Webster Parish, who submitted a very strong letter of opposition. You have opposition from the Sheriff's Office in Webster Parish, and you also have opposition from the Chief of Police in Mendon, Louisiana. You have multiple opposition from the members of the victim's family. We have on record at least 8 or 9 letters of opposition, and the family is here today, and they will be given appropriate and sufficient time to make their presentation a little bit later in this hearing. Let's go over your criminal record. You have an extensive criminal record, 20 or more arrests, including 14 violent arrests and 2 BWI. Your extensive history of violence dates back to 1983, when you convicted of 2 counts of assault with a deadly weapon in San Diego, California. Along with that, you were arrested for a battery with serious bodily injury. That was dismissed as a part of your plea deal to the 2 assault charges. You were also arrested in San Diego on that day for battery on a person. That was also dismissed as a part of the plea deal. In Mendon, Louisiana, you were arrested for aggravated arson, another violent offense. In 1987, 9 counts, and you pled guilty. 1987, again, same day, simple criminal damage to property, aggravated battery. And then you escaped after you were arrested on April 1st, you escaped from the Webster Parish facility on April 4th, only 3 days later. You were out in 1990 and you had a DWI. 1990, unauthorized use of a movable. 1990, flight from an officer. 1993, simple assault, another violent offense. 1994, possession of a firearm by a convicted felon. Another violent offense. 1996, aggravated battery. He pled guilty to second-degree battery, another violent offense. 2002, simple battery. You were convicted, another violent offense. 2003 again, simple battery. It was now processed. 2003, March, and another DWI. And then in July of 2003, second degree murder. But it doesn't stop when you were arrested for the murder of Miss Wendy Thompson. The next year, you had an aggravated escape. You escaped the Webster Parish facility again. And then while you escaped, you had battery on the correction officer, another violent offense. Where did all the violence come from, Mr. Seamer?
The violence came from the drugs and alcohol.
Let's 1 second. So first of all, before we talk about the alcohol, we're going to talk about the evidence that was collected from the house, where every room of the house had blood all over it, from the carport to the bedrooms to the kitchen. One knife was found on the dresser in the bedroom. One knife was found on the kitchen floor near the laundry room. One knife was found in the sink with the handle in water. One knife was found in the kitchen with a bent blade near the sink floor. A broken knife in the bedroom. It goes on and on and on. Your clothes were collected. Every stitch of clothes you had on was blood soaked. So you still didn't tell us exactly what happened that day on July 20th. Why were you evidently chasing Miss Thomas throughout the house and stabbing her? What was going on?
We had got in a little fight.
No, sir, that was not a fight. That was a vicious attack on a human being. At this point, Ms. Thomas could not defend herself. And when you have a fight, there's two persons trying to defend themselves. Ms. Thomas cannot or did not or was not able to defend herself. What was going on?
My anger had got to the best of me, and I had got heated up in a rage, and I couldn't stop. That's what happened, sir.
Thank you. Give me a second. 1 second. Let's talk about your drug and alcohol issue, okay? At what age did you start? Well, I remember now. You said that you started using drugs and alcohol while in the military. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
At what age were you at that time?
I was, I believe I was 19, sir.
Okay, and what did you start with?
I started with alcohol, sir.
And beer, whiskey, or what?
Whiskey, sir.
Okay. And when did you start using drugs?
About a year later, cocaine.
You were still in the military.
Yes, sir.
You started with cocaine. Did you ever smoke marijuana before that?
Yes, sir. I have smoked marijuana.
And when did you start smoking marijuana?
And I was probably about like 18.
That was before the military.
Yes, sir.
So a year after you got into the military, you started drinking hard alcohol and using cocaine.
Yes, sir.
How long did you stay in the military?
Stayed in there 6 years, sir, with honorable discharge.
Did you use drugs and alcohol for the entire 5 years after that?
Off and on, sir.
How did you perform your duties under the influence of drugs and alcohol?
Well, it was on the weekend, sir, like a Friday night or something like that, but not during the weekdays, sir. When I went out to the clubs.
Okay. So when you got back in Louisiana, did you continue to use drugs and alcohol?
Yes, sir. I used drugs and alcohol off and on.
When did you arrive? When were you released from the military?
I left in 1986.
1986. So
Yes,
you used drugs and alcohol after arriving home 1986 until you murdered Miss Thomas in 2003. So we're talking 16 years?
yes, sir. Give or take.
Did you ever seek treatment?
Yes, sir. I treatment one time, and when I was at Clemens, I was working. I went to an outpatient clinic.
There's never inpatient treatment.
No, sir. No inpatient clinic.
How long did you stop using drugs and alcohol after going to the outpatient treatment?
About like 8 months.
Did you ever attend any AA meeting?
Yes, sir. I attended AA meeting, but I had stopped going to them.
Did you ever sponsor?
I had a sponsor, sir.
So what happened that you stopped going to AA meeting?
Well, I went to back to my old stomping grounds, hanging around the same old friends, people, places, and things. That's what got me in the bind again, sir.
Okay. Now, according to my records, you have completed pre-release, anger management, and moral compass. Tell us what other programs have you completed? What other good time programs have you completed?
Cage of Rage and anger management, sir. And I'm enrolled and living in balance, sir.
So basically, in 19 years, you've taken pre-release, moral compass, anger management, and you're just getting into what are you currently enrolled in?
Living in balance, substance abuse.
So after 19 years of incarceration, you're taking your first substance abuse class right now?
Yes, sir.
Why?
Because
You have a problem. You are an alcoholic and you are a drug addict. Why would you wait 19 years to take your first substance abuse education program?
Because, sir, at the time, I had 50 flat years and there was no way for me to get out of prison. And so what I did, I changed my life and I had a spiritual awakening and I used God as my higher power to change my life from the old man to the new man. Because I was created in the image of God as being an order from the recent man. And I enrolled in Bible college and I started going.
Sir. So what you're trying to tell me is that you had no chance of being paroled and there was no sense of rehabilitating yourself. So you took the route of educating yourself and making things better for you instead of worrying about society as a whole getting treated for your problem so that you could live a productive life when you release. You sought education and vocational skills that would enhance your life upon release. Am I correct?
In a way, sir, but not really because, sir, at the time, my mind was real shattered and I needed help to get my thinking back on the right track. So by me turning my life over to God, it cleared my mind. And by me clearing my mind, it allowed me to think and to be able to get back into the program, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Seamer. Mr. Seamer, tell us what your ongoing sobriety plan is when you're released.
I have a sobriety network which consists of my higher power of God, but I also have supported people in my sobriety network. I have George Gillen, my daughter, my dad. Anytime to talk to them or call to them, I had a parole project for sobriety network to talk to or anything, and I also to talk to the church or go to AA or NA, call anyone, anytime, or even today, sir.
Now, what if 2 years after you get released and you decide to stop going to NA, stop taking advice of the Louisiana Parole Project? You were going to NA before and you just decided that you didn't want to go anymore. So what's the stop you from making that decision again?
Because at 40 years old, I'm now 60, I'm not the same man I was 40 years old. My thinking and my things I have decided to do have changed since then. At 40 years old, I had those problems. But since I've been incarcerated for the last 20 years, I haven't used any substance abuse. I haven't got any write-ups dealing with substance abuse. I haven't failed any piss test doing substance abuse, sir. And what I have considered is change my life to be a mentor for other prisoners in the system, sir, by helping them with all types of walks of life that I had did and when I was 40. Now I can give back to the society, be a better citizen, even with risk kids in the free world, to talk to them and tell them what drugs and alcohol had did to my life.
Mr. Seamer, most people are very mature at the age of 40 years old. I just want to let you know that.
Yes, sir.
Let's go over your annual institution report. You're housed in medium custody. You have a low risk assessment. You have a high school diploma, 2 associate degrees, and a bachelor's degree. You only have 3 write-ups. As I said before, you have horticulture diploma and pesticide and landscaping. I think we've mentioned all the programs, and I see you're on backlog for Thinking for a Change, and I think you definitely need to take Thinking for a Change. You're a coffee shop box owner, and you belong to Strive. Tell us about Strive.
Strive is an honor course, sir. where you have no write-ups and you participate and you do all the rules according to the correction facility, sir.
I see your transition plan is with your uncle, Mr. Stephen Jackson in Lake Charles. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And tell us about the employment that you will have when you arrive at Lake Charles.
When I arrived at Lake Charles, I would go out and get me a job because of my job skill. And I've been working with him for a little while, but I can do welding, the first class welder at Trinity Marine. I was a welder at Clements. I can barber. I got horticulture degrees. I can get my business started up for landscaping and nursery, which is a big factor down there. And by being in Lake Charles, it has a lot of job opportunity. Plus, I have changed places, people, and things to help me to maintain the level I need to be as a citizen, sir.
Okay, that's your permanent transition plan. The initial transition plan is with the Louisiana Pro Project. How long do you plan to stay with the Louisiana Pro Project?
As long as it take me, sir, as long as they help me to whatever I do, develop the skills I need to return into society, sir.
Right, thank you so much. And he also has a good institutional record. Security supervisor said he's respectful and takes pride in his job. Let's do that disciplinary write-up that I was talking about. In 2017, you had a 30W. Tell us what that 30W was for.
30W was dealing with, I had to help some guys to get some cigarettes, smoke cigarettes, sir.
Ward Mine, can you verify that? Because a 30W is usually dealing with an opposite sex employee.
No, sir, that's what it was about. It was, dealing with trying to smuggle cigarettes in.
Thank you, Ward. Now, I see you have no history of mental health. You're level 5 in mental health. But I do think that you need a long-term substance abuse program. Mr. Seaman, you have a problem. You're an alcoholic and you're a drug addict. Do you agree with me?
Yes, sir. For the last 20 years, I haven't had any substance abuse. But I will
But
agree with you.
how long will you be an alcoholic?
According to the program, forever.
One second. As I said before, you have a low risk assessment, a low needs assessment. Transition plan is a Lake Charles permanent, and your initial plan is a Louisiana Pro Project. Mr. Seaman, are there any other programs, educational achievements, organizational participation, or community service involvement that you would like to mention briefly?
Yes, sir. I'm currently in the Boys to Men program where they was changing with effective communication. And the motto in the Boys to Men is, when I was a child, I spoke as a child, understood a child, I thought as a child. When I became a man, of a mind. And that's a program by Warden Miles. And it's an excellent program, sir, to be able to effectively communicate with people, to respect the borders, self-confidence, integrity, to be a God-fearing man, to be a reliable a son or a grandson, be a respected person in the community, to get along with everyone by loving God and loving people, sir.
Thank you. Ward Myers, do you have any comments, concerns, remarks, or observations?
I do, Mr. Roche. I'll probably take just a minute on this one if it's okay. first of all, you know, as you mentioned, this was a brutal crime, and my sympathies go out to the victim and the families. I want to say that first and foremost. Let me begin by the positive things Michael's done. You mentioned a lot of them. He's taken some good classes. He's improved his education. I have to note that, you know, I mean, as you mentioned, he has a serious, very poor history with violence. But since his time in incarceration, he hasn't had even as much as a fight. So, you know, I have to commend him for that. I do have to commend him for his conduct here at the facility. He is a facility barber. As he mentioned, he's in my Strive program, which is an honor program, and he's enrolled in my Boys to Men program that I recently created, which is not a good time class. This is a volunteer class. They'd earn nothing from this other than good life skills. And so I commend him for being on. This is my second class, and he's been on backlog and got into this one. And so I think that's going to be a positive impact for him. But having said all that, I believe he needs, as you said, extensive substance abuse programming. He's currently enrolled in phase 1 of Living in Balance, but I'd like to see him complete all phases of that before his release. He's backlogged for thinking for a change. He needs that before his release. And also, he's not backlogged, I see right now, but I will make sure he gets in that for our victim impact program. I think that's going to be extremely important because, you know, just listening to he and I had a long conversation the other day through his conversation with you. I don't think he yet fully really understands the true impact of his crime and the severity of it. I think he realizes it, but I don't think in his mind he's accepted it yet. I think he's on the right way. I think he's on the right path, but I think he needs to complete these things and do a little bit more searching, and we want to give him the tools to succeed. We want to make sure when he goes home that he succeeds and stays home and gets past these anger problems. So I do believe those classes help him tremendously. Right.
Madam Chairman,
Thank you, Mr. Roche. Could we hear now from the Parole Project, Mr. Myers?
Yes, good morning. Kerry Myers with Louisiana Parole Project here to say that should this board grant Mr. Seamster his release today, Parole Project will provide him with all the transitional support our program has to offer. That'll include transitional housing. That'll include skills in financial and technology, in social norms. We will connect him to all consumer skills. We're connecting to all the services that he needs. You know, when Mr. Seamster made his plea 20 years ago, he didn't, obviously, he had no knowledge that he would someday be eligible for parole. Act 122 created that opportunity for him. I have to agree and commend him for the work that he's done, particularly getting his degrees, both his associate's and bachelor's degree in Christian ministry, and working as an inmate minister. We believe that he has a strong support system once he is finished with the Parole Project. And so we just want to let the board know that we support him through this process.
All right, thank you. All right, we'll hear from the opposition now. Could we hear from Ms. Thomas?
Ms. Renata.
Yes, sir.
Pardon me. We do have his father here. Please, before you go to the victim, if you'd like to allow him just a brief moment.
Sure, I'm sorry. I have that on my list, so y'all just bear with me while you get ready. We'd like to, Mr. Seamster's father. Go ahead, sir. We're having a little difficulty hearing. Can you step closer to the microphone? There we go.
My name is Benny Lewis, father of Michael State. Speaking today in support of his release. Aka had made a terrible mistake, is no longer that person. Aka has grown and changed in many ways. Relationship, understanding, and consistent conversation, which is his love for the Lord. In his ministry, he too is trying to lead people to the Lord. The family will be affected in many ways by his presence. We have time to be with his children, grandkids, direct and encourage them in positive ways in life. Aka has many talents would help him support himself. Some are welding, cooking, barbering, carpentering, teaching. He took advantage of the classes while he was incarcerated at all times. He has certificates in many things that I've heard earlier that I agree with, like landscape and nursery and other things like this. We talked about them when we called and talk or write letters like that. I will continue to support him the best I can while the program is going on. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. All right, Thomas.
I would start out by speaking to everybody that's in this. I'm trying to who might us. It's away from mom. It's sister. One part I goals was to be a grandma, right? From us. She's very big to be a grandma. This is what our parents today. She's very to be a part of my niece who's the daughter. It's not here today. She is 6 years old. Not today to share her honey. But it's not a drug addict. My mom was a monster. My facetious relationship started Bible study when he was in jail in West minister to the inmates in that jail. My mom, they knew how my mom was into church and they started out in Bible study before he was released to society. Once released to society, he had him in church. He was in the class singing for her. Yet he chose to take the life of his daddy, everything saying, and you somebody. You praise him for being in the military. Yes, he was in the military. But the same skill that he learned in the military, he used them when he escaped from jail, trying to bury himself in dirt and leaves to try to evade the police that was trying to capture him. He is a model citizen behind bars. He is the perfect that he's doing now. He did it when he was in jail the first time. But out in society, he's a monster. He got arrested, got released. He got murdered. But he is a model citizen in jail, but in society, as you can see, he's a monster. And I'm here today to oppose the release of my husband. So when we received that letter, yes, we accepted the 50 years. We accepted the 50 years of him being locked up for taking away my mother's life. But when we received that letter, it took us back 20 years after this happened. Why is he even? on her behalf. And speak my peace and how I feel about the situation, and I pray that you always take into consideration today.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And, Tim,
Thompson, Junior Thompson. I opposed it too. When she said, as the most, so I was there. I was there all, a lot of my mom's struggles with Michael. And I heard everything that he's saying right now that he was supposed to be. He's a changed man. He's not gonna do this anymore, not gonna do that anymore. He's a liar, he's a monster. He is a straight up liar and monster. And we use anything he can to try to fool people. But my mama gave him a chance, because she was a God-fearing woman. She believed in the Bible. She tried her best to help him change, be a difference maker. He sung in the choir, all that stuff. All it was a cover up for who he really is. He did not have to take my mom's life. I wish you should, like some other girl would never truly know what her mother was, how she impacted my life. He's a monster. I was there the day that I was there. She told me she was gonna be okay. I left the house before he did what he did to my mother. I wish I would have left. I wish I would have been able to protect her. And it's not a day go by that I wish something would have been different. Well, I'm still touch my mother, talk to my mother. So like I said, I hope you guys consider, like I said, his history. He's not, he gave up his chance to live among law-abiding citizens like you and me. Go to work every day, live, raise a family, pay taxes, whatever. He didn't want that. But he had plenty of chances, as you can see in his history. Plenty of chances.
yes, sir, thank you. And we have Tim Taylor.
My name is Jeffrey, and I'm his brother. And I just want to say something to you in place of my 87-year-old mother, because she couldn't be here today. She want to know why, first of all, would you take her baby like that? She want to know, after 20 years, you have no remorse. You have not wrote my mother a letter and say, I'm sorry. You have not tried to contact these kids and say, I'm sorry, but you can get a degree. Fine, get your degree, but he's not sorry. He's still trying to blame it on my sister after he stabbed her over 100 times. This man would not change. This man would not change. You let him back out there, then we get y'all drugs again. What's the next woman gonna make him mad? And he does the same thing. Because he's done it over and over again. And every day we go through this every day with my sister. I'm here. She was a kind person. She tried to love this guy and help him. She tried to stand by him, like she said. He's been in the church before. He knows the Bible. The devil knows the Bible. Guarantee you. So he's not going to change. Yeah, okay. They got him locked down. He's doing what he has to do to make it. I understand fine. But he doesn't deserve what he agreed on. So we wouldn't have to go to trial 50 years. But not possibility of parole. And now we come down the road and some legislation change the game. He should not be awarded that. He should not get that on his, to be released like that, because he accepted it. He pleaded guilty. He knows what he did. like you said, he's a grown man, he's 40 years old. But one Sunday morning, instead of going to church with my sister, he decided to go home and cut her tires on the car so she couldn't leave. He decided to lock her up in the house so she couldn't get out. And he decided to take life. He decided to take it. You don't want that right to take life. God had that right to take life. Because he can't give her life back after 20 years. Because you spent 20 years, you can't give my sister back.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, we appreciate it. Right,
Thank you.
what, just be brief, we only had, that's okay, be brief, so I didn't have him listed as a speaker, we only allow 3 people to speak.
I'm sorry, thank you. Again, thank you. Appreciate the order. Appreciate the opportunity. Words. I would repeat a lot of things. One thing I do know for sure. His father is there. Benny Lewis. That man cut my hair. My father. You're like, well, where is the relationship coming from? Wendy is my sister. And what you see here is a picture of what that family is. Wendy's mother was Jeffrey's. Wendy's father, Michael. We are all. These guys here, and I saw them come to world. Wendy was in my life when she was already. This is Mr. Horn, Jacob T. He said it all. And what seems to get not said. We're talking about the Bible, we're talking about God, we're talking about this. When his father was a gospel singer, a recording artist, that was his passion. My whole family comes from our grandparents, but we hang our hats. On the way down here from Dallas Fort Worth, that is an 8-hour drive. I could not stop wondering, why am I taking off work? Why am I driving 8 hours? Why am I getting hotel rooms? Why am I doing these things? There's something that I see more about that. Seamster came over to my mother's house. His mother would be there, my father there, my mother there, these kids there at the time being children, all sitting at the table. That man sat up at my mother's table with his shoes kicked off twirling his toes just about every Sunday. Eating her good food. I never knew how women met singing. But I always wondered, that doesn't match up because I knew who his sister was and I knew his history. He used to send a little carvings that he did in wood shop. He would be so happy with those little carvings. He thought that was the greatest thing.
Mr. Taylor, could you wrap it up for us, please?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you guys for having me. Everything these folks said, he knows how to behave if I'm talking. I've never been. I believe that none of us need that. I just ask everybody to take into consideration facts,
Thank you, sir.
morality, and just what's right.
Thank you, sir. All right, Mr. Senator, before we turn it over to Mr. Aver.
Well, I have remorse. It's not a day that go by what I did to Wendy. I have feelings that I had destroyed my life because of the drugs and alcohol. And I have to live with it every day. And sometimes I can't even face the day when I get up. But there is plenty of remorse in my heart. But I have found a way to change and to better myself. And I can never repay what was done. I can never repay what was done. But I do take the accountability and responsibility of what I did. And I do have remorse for the family, for friends, and everyone. And that's what I have to say right now. As long as I live, there's going to be remorse in my heart. Because that was my best friend, my girlfriend, for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Seamster. Mr. Everett?
And thank you, Mr. Mata. I think what Mr. Roche asked in the beginning of is Mr. Seamster prepared to? So I'd like to kind of talk about some of the steps he's taken throughout his incarceration time. Mr. Seamster does have a long criminal history. He has a poor supervision, but this is by far his longest period of incarceration. This almost 20 years has given him the time and the resources that he needs to go about these work. So some of the things Mr. Seamster has done, as we've discussed, he's attained 2 associate's degrees, a bachelor's degree. He's completed the 100 hours pre-release program. He's done anger management, substance abuse. One of the issues that plagued Mr. Seamster in his past was his violence. So he's tried to take steps to make up for that issue and to rehabilitate himself. He's taken those anger management classes. And he's gone almost 20 years with not only not a violence write-up, but he's only had 3 write-ups in his entire period of incarceration. I'm sure y'all know it's very difficult. I'd also like to talk about the substance abuse steps he's taken. He is enrolled in the Living in Balance class, so he will complete that class. He also has developed a very specific substance abuse plan, which I'm sure y'all know this is a very nerve-wracking experience for him. So he wasn't able to give you the explicit details of that, but I can break that down. He's developed a 3-stage substance abuse plan. The first stage is relying on what we call his substance abuse team. So that's his father, daughter, Mr. Gillum, his uncle, that team that he knows that he can rely on. And he's actually set up opportunities to meet with them via phone or in person every week to discuss how his substance abuse journey is going, his sobriety journey is going. And then his second step in that 3-step plan is utilizing the kind of toolbox he's acquired throughout his incarceration period. Meditation through prayer, open communication, things like this are all skills that he's been able to acquire through his educational opportunities and through the programs. And then his final step in that sobriety plan is to work with the parole project, get the AA and the NA meetings that he needs while in Baton Rouge with the parole project, but also when he moves to Lake Charles with them. Now, I think Mr. Seamster recognized that he's worked hard to change who he is, but he's a work in progress. And he's very open to doing conditional release, where he would do all the programs that Warden Meyer has requested, do any of the programs that the board recommends, and would request conditional release on once he completes those programs. The last thing I'd like to say is, we can listen to Mr. Seamster talk about those. We can look at all of the paper illustrating, what he's done. But I want to share with you a quote from the letter of recommendation from Dr. Rick Sharkey, who is the director of the Joan Horner extension of the New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary. And what he said is his leadership, talking about Mr. Seamster, and character influenced both his church and the general community of the main Christians. Michael achieved a level of influence at Angola many men aspire to achieve. He constantly demonstrated leadership ability and personal sacrifice in the pursuit of helping others achieve this. Now, Mr. Seamster knows he's a work in progress, but he's worked very hard. This is a man that is worthy of a second chance and is ready to go make a positive.
All right, and thank you, Mr. Everett. So we're prepared to vote.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, Mr. Roche will be voting first.
Mr. Seamster, based on the following reasons, I'm going to deny your request today. An extensive criminal history. You've been convicted of 4 felonies, been arrested 20+ times. 14 of those arrests, violent arrests, a long history of violence dating back to 1983 in San Diego, California. 4 supervision history. You've been revoked at least 2 or 3 times. Express opposition from the DA's office and law enforcement in the Mendon, Louisiana community. Overwhelming express opposition by all members of the victim's family. And lastly, a plea agreement that you entered to with the state of Louisiana and the victim's family to serve 50 years. I deem 19.5 years insufficient time served on that sentence. Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. O'Shea. Mr. Freeman.
Okay, Mr. Seamster, first off, you've done very well in prison. I commend you on what you've done for your community in prison, but that is in prison. And I agree with Mr. Roger, you've not served enough time on a 50-year sentence. You have strong victim and law enforcement opposition. And I think you need more programming, especially when it comes to drugs. It looks like drugs lead you to violence. Violence leads us to being here today, and the loss of a lovely lady, I could tell by the way people spoke. So my vote is to deny.
Mr. Seamster, as we all acknowledge, you've done very well. You've done some really good things in prison. Mr. Everett did a really good job in preparing the packet for us and sharing information about you and helping us understand you a little better. You know, there's no doubt the law says you're eligible for parole. Warden Myers said good things about you. He believes you got a little more work to do, as do I. My vote today is going to be to deny you parole because I think you got some more work to do, but you have done a great job. So keep doing what you're doing. You know, you have some very strong opposition. You have a family that's really still hurting. So victim awareness will help you out. I do. So today, sir, you received a unanimous vote to deny your parole. We'd like to.
Victim awareness. It's almost funny how they throw it all up into the mercy of a program. It's like, you know, I think you need some victim awareness. Apologies for the different sounds, and also look, I'm actually camping right now with my family, and I tried to take the laptop outside, but the bugs swarmed it, of course. So I hope I'm not waking them up. It's right now 5:25 a.m. So I guess I started watching this at 4:25 a.m. I just wanted to get some of these out because I'm gonna be gone for another week. So please do forgive me. Now, back to this case. It's so disturbing. It really is. No number of programs can fix this man. I can only train him to do better on an interview, which is just mind-blowing to me. How do you go 20 years, get these degrees and, you know, as they said, do pretty well, actually. And not have the ability to at least fake it. Not have the ability to at least fake a better answer about stabbing your girlfriend 100 times, chasing her around the house with not one knife, not two, but I think 5 different knives. Mr. O'Shea mentioned. It's scary stuff. It's terrifying. The victim's family described him as a monster, and I'll have to just agree with that. That man is a monster. To have the audacity to, when being asked what happened, to say he got into a fight, you're not right up there. And I really like what Mr. O'Shea, he said, I'm straight up fights where 2 people are involved when someone can defend themselves. He was like a monster chasing her around the house, stabbing her in each room. His clothes was blood soaked. He was 40 years old when he did this. 40. Years old when he locked her up in a house and chased her around and stabbed her over 100 times. And when one knife broke, he got another. And when that knife broke, he got another. You can't even imagine the terror in that room, in that house. And to think that the best he can do when he gets up there is say he was caught in a fight, and then to even lie and say she pulled the knife out on him. Now it was her fault. You can't make it up. I want to yell. I want to I don't want to wake up my family. I hope you guys can hear me. I couldn't find transcripts for this. And I think that's because he took a plea deal, which is interesting. A 50-year plea deal at age 40, it is a life sentence. So someone must have told him, hey, you're assigned 50, but maybe the laws will change. You'll be able to get parole. I don't really know. Because I'm not sure why anyone would agree to 50 years. Unless he just knew he was going to get wrecked in court. He didn't want to deal with court. But still, it's still a life sentence. Now, the thing is that he probably will get out after he served 25 years. He probably will. And he'll take some programs, and he'll come into the next hearing, and he'll say, due to drugs and alcohol, I became a monster, and something like that. And they'll praise him and say, oh, you're such a great guy. You know, it's funny to mention, he only had 3 write-ups, which is incredible. But none violent. No violent write-ups. And I'm like, yeah, because there are no defenseless women in prison. If there were, believe me, he'd have violent write-ups. But no, they fight back where he is. They don't. He doesn't like when they fight back. No, They need to be defenseless, scared. He needs to have a knife. He needs to stab 100 times. The way that that scene was described was out of a horror flick. Terrifying. And the family has to get up here and relive it to listen to people praise him. Although he has all this ministry stuff, he doesn't even have a good plan. The attorney says, well, he has a 3-step plan, which is he has a support list, which is his family, which he can call them once a week. Then he has his Bible studies. And then third, and meditation. And what was the third? Was that it? Meditation. The third was Bible studies. It's like, wait, so basically you're saying his plan is to talk to his family and read the Bible? That's how he's going to stay sober? Like, the Parole Project knows so much. They know exactly what he needs to do to be prepared to get out. They don't coach him? What are they doing? Like, all they have to do is tell him, you're going to just say you're going to go to AA and NA and you're going to get a sponsor. Here's a list of AA and NA next to where you'll get released. Like, what? Like, do they not even have phone calls with them? I sometimes wonder how these relationships manifest, how they play out. Like, if there's any effort made by Kerry Myers and his team. I do wonder. "40 years old when you chase your girlfriend around the house with a knife and stab her 100 times. And then 20 years later, when you have your chance for freedom, you say, we got in a fight. Then you say, she pulled a knife on me. You're a monster. You showed it. You showed us all again today that you're just a monster." It's pretty amazing. If you didn't see this, you wouldn't believe it. It would just be hard to believe. But even today, after 20 years of meditation, like, what are you learning in Bible's class when you get your associates and bachelors? What are you learning? Does no one sit down and say, let's have a deep talk about why it is that you raged on your girlfriend and stabbed her 100 times? Let's understand what it is that happened. Let's mourn it. Let's mourn who that person was and bury that person, because you're not that person anymore. But let's see what triggered you and what enraged you and what brought the monster out of you, because you were a monster. When she looked into your eyes as you were taking her life, she saw the eyes of a monster. But no, on your parole hearing, the best you can do is say you got in a fight and then blame it on her? You've learned nothing in 20 years. It just shows your true colors. You believe that you're in there because of her. It still is her fault that you're locked up. It's sick. And there's nothing that would stop it from happening again. Because you haven't even identified what lives inside of you. I do hope that the sound quality was okay. With that, I will let you go.